Baker Prindle. I direct the Carolyn Campagna Kleefeld Contemporary Art Museum at Cal State Long Beach, and this is my collection. I think a lot of people don't know that museum directors are subject to a lot of ethical regulations on how they collect and what they collect. And because I direct a contemporary art museum, I mostly don't collect contemporary art because I don't want to have an unfair advantage and gain from my position as a museum director. So mostly I collect old art, but I am going to show you a little bit of contemporary art. First though, I want to show you some ancient art. I went to school and lived in Italy. I lived in Rome for a while, and it's a place that brings me a lot of happiness whenever I go and visit. And especially times like this, having objects from there that bring me joy are really perfect. And I think it's a good bit of advice for collectors in general to buy things and collect things that make you happy. So I started collecting Roman oil lamps, and because I'm Jewish, I thought it'd be really cool to collect Roman oil lamps from Palestine, what is now Israel. So I started collecting these Roman oil lamps. This one is about maybe 1,700 years old. And it's an oil lamp. It's made out of clay. And you would have a wick here, and the oil would go in here, and you light it, and this is sort of like a flashlight, and it's meant to fit right in your hand. What's really cool is that on the bottom there's a maker's mark. It's a 8-spoked wheel, and it tells us that it was made in Palestine, which I think is really cool. And I think, as often happens with collecting, is you start with one and you get more and more and more, and you start getting other things. This is about 1,400 years old. This is an Islamic style oil lamp. And sometimes they have really cool handles or designs on them. This is a Byzantine style lamp, but all of these make me really happy. I like having them. Another one of my favorite objects that brings a lot of joy into my life is this print from the late 1700s. It's a etching from a copper plate by an artist named Piranesi, and it also reminds me of my time living in Rome. It's a recognizable monument. It's the Temple of Saturn that's still in the Roman Forum. So I used to walk by it all the time and see this. So it's really cool to have in our house and be able to look at it every time I walk down this hallway. Some really neat things about this image. So one, it's from the first edition that his sons pulled after they left Rome and moved to Paris. And there's some thought that his kids had a role in easing him to his death. Certainly weren't helping him. So as you're trapped inside with your family, just remember that some families are worse than others. What's really cool is that there's all sorts of little things happening that are kind of fun to look at. So up here, this man's fighting with his mule. And here there's the shepherd, and there's some clothes drying on a line hung between these two columns. And this dude probably is a little down on his luck. There's lots of fun things happening. There's a signature down here. And you see also the depression of the copper plate, because the plate would have been pressed into the paper on a press when the paper was still wet. There's also some things to note. The line quality is really strong. This is an early print in the edition. Piranesi would have drawn with a metal tool right into the copper plate. And every time the plate is printed, eventually those lines that are scratched into the copper plate and hold all the ink, those lines get a bit smushed and they get duller, and the line is not quite as fine or as dark. Some other really neat things, a lot of people don't know that these prints would have been bound in an album. And so here you see the sew marks where the needle pierced the paper. And because the paper is so big, it would have had to been folded even within the book, and there's the crease. Lots of fun things to look at. One of my favorites. So, like I said, some things I do collect are contemporary art, and this is one of my favorite works. This is called Zach. It's by a photographer named Tom Jones, who I studied with, and I traded a couch for this. No, I didn't. I traded an artwork. That's right, I traded an artwork. And that's how a lot of people build their collections. I've lived with this for a while, and I'm really excited that I have this piece. It was the first of 5 in the edition, and it was made at this thing called a rendezvous, and it's sort of like a Civil War reenactment almost, where sometimes Indigenous Americans and oftentimes a lot of European Americans get together and they reenact either real or more often imagined meetings between colonial settlers, white settlers, and Indigenous Americans in the 19th century. And what happens is people dress up in ways that they think Indigenous Americans dressed, or in ways that they've seen it in other movies or in books or paintings. And I think what's so interesting to me about this work is that it tells us much more about how we imagine Indigenous Americans are and the sort of fantasy of cowboys and Indians that our country engages in quite a bit. And so living with this piece helps me be thoughtful and think more about the expectations that I project onto other people. So it's a cool thing to have in the house, and I love photography, so it makes me pretty happy. Okay, so this artwork is a little too small for me to stand with it and also show it to you. So this is a painting by Will Hutnick, and we bought it at Untitled Art Fair during Art Basel a couple of years ago. And I think I love abstraction, I love these colors, I love this painting. The minute I saw it, I knew I had to have it. And I think what's really cool about it is that it is so small. It's not that much bigger than my hand. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I can't own art, I don't have enough room, or it's too expensive. Well, Will Hutnick's paintings are expensive, but this one was small, so it was a lot more affordable. And I had room for it in my house. And I think that's something worth remembering when you're thinking about how you might collect things on your own. And it lives next door to a painting by Michael Sarich that I bought from Stremmel Gallery up in Reno, Nevada. And I used to work with Michael Sarich, and I've always really liked his paintings. And they're really fun and kind of weird and strange. And again, it's a smaller painting, and I certainly don't have room for his major works, and I don't have that kind of money either. So another little painting that we live with and are really happy to have. His mark is really distinctive, and he has a really defined set of icons and symbols that he works with quite a bit. Skull shows up almost all the time. So here's one more painting from artist Larson, and it also is a smaller painting, so we have room for it. That's my dog barking. She likes this painting. And it's kind of unclear. It does a lot of things that paintings don't often do. It hangs from a corner. It doesn't have much in the way of visible brushwork. It does have this kind of hidden painting behind it. It's sort of dimensional. Is it a sculpture? Is it a painting? I like those questions. I like when art asks us what it is and challenges us and makes us ask questions. If you get it right away and you understand it immediately, I don't really know if it's doing its job. So I like living with this for that reason. So this is the last artwork I'm going to talk to you about. It is by an artist named Michelle Laxalt. She was a student of mine, and something we've always tried to do is buy work and support students of mine. And this is a mature work from after she had moved to Atlanta, where she's doing really well. And what I love about it is that even though I'm really into abstraction, I'm also really into figuration. You've already seen a few works either that I talked about or in the shot that are figurative, like the one right above my head. I think when people look at this sculpture, it's not entirely clear what it is, but I think it is very figurative in the way that it references the body and sort of looks like something that could come from a body or be part of a body. And it's this fleshy, kind of strange color, sort of weird thing to look at. And I think that the abject is certainly there, and I think it's something that I both want to touch and don't want to touch, and I like all of those things about it. I like how it stands on its own and speaks the language of sculpture and figuration in really clever ways. And it makes me happy to have my students work. I lied. One more artwork. This is a painting by Nate Clark, and it is one of our favorites in the house. It deals with the application of a rule through repetition and in a sort of minimal language. It reminds me a lot of Agnes Martin. I want to thank you for letting me show you a bit of our collection here at the house, and I hope that you'll follow the other Kleefeld Connect videos and follow us at the Kleefeld. Let us know, drop us a line, send us a direct message or a comment, and tell us how you're doing, how you're thinking about what you live with in your house. And we hope to see you in person soon when everybody's able to get out and feeling better. Until then, take care.